So against the backdrop of the Forrest Fenn's announcement that the treasure has been found, a GoFundMe page materialized under the headline Forrest Fenn Treasure Claims Life of Mike Sexton. The introduction to this crowdfunding campaign to help survivors of the most recent Colorado victim begins. On the night of March 16, 2020, Mike Sexton took off on an adventure. Basically, it says he loved puzzles, he loved to get outside, he kind of walked on the edge, so to speak, and he followed the treasure hunt of Forrest Fenn, and he was looking for the treasure. And he said, so on the night of March 16, 2020, Mike set off to find his riches. Unfortunately, his hunt did not turn out the way he or any of us thought it would. Mike set off to find his riches. Unfortunately, he died. I'll just get to the heart of it. He died. He became lost in the wilderness. He died from exposure to the cold on what is believed to have been day 3 and was found on day 5. This person says, I assume it's the wife of Mike Sexton, but I don't know. His wife is mentioned in the GoFundMe page caption. This person says, I often wonder how coincidental it was for the treasure to be found less than 3 months after I contacted Mr. Fenn about Mike's death. I begged Mr. Fenn to stop this game. It isn't fun anymore. It's dangerous. Then they're fun. So, here you have in March, Mike Sexton dies, and you have people notifying Fenn and asking him, not for the first time, to please quit the hunt. Okay? That's in March. Then we have the article or the video that K-Pro, and this is really strange to me. You have the video that K-Pro and Cowlazars did with Forrest Fenn where they interviewed him, and he brought up a subject that is never brought up in 10 years, and he brought this up in March or April. I don't know which, because I went back to look for the video and I couldn't find it. Maybe they've taken it off YouTube because of, they showed clips of it on this recent show, but maybe they took the whole interview off because they have a documentary coming out. But the point I'm trying to make is, Forrest Fenn talks about something in that interview that had the whole search community buzzing for days. He brought up the fact, after 10 years, out of the blue, no one had ever been told this by Forrest Fenn, that the treasure apparently was incorporated in an S corporation, which is kind of like an umbrella corporation that you could have the treasure incorporated and shield you as the individual owner from lawsuits and perhaps tax problems. This S corporation would be who people would have to sue to get to the owner, and this S corporation, you could use it to distribute the contents of the chest and the different tax liabilities, because there are different things in there. There are old things in there, like old Mayan things. There's gold in there. Apparently these all might have different tax levels or tax, what I'm trying to say. They're taxed differently because they're different things. This took people by surprise. An S corporation. I guess is Forrest Fenn saying he's incorporated the chest? Maybe the treasure's always been incorporated? Is he saying that the finder's going to be made owner of a corporation that the treasure chest is in? But the recurring theme of people after this occurred was, something's going on. Something is going on for Forrest Fenn for the first time in 10 years to suddenly talk about the treasure is incorporated. And I remember saying on a couple of blog sites, it almost seems like Forrest Fenn feels like the treasure's about to be found, and he's letting the finder know that when he does find it, the treasure will be in this corporate venue, if that's the right term. Kind of laying out legally what you're going to deal with as the finder. And then it's found. Again, all these things whirling around, lawsuits, people dying, people saying to Mr. Fenn, please, this is number 7 death. It's no longer funny. Fenn coming out and saying in an interview, oh, by the way, the treasure could be incorporated in an S corporation. Now, here's another thing that I found very interesting. I mean, I was just kind of going, wow, there's a lot been going on lately with Mr. Fenn. Thank God it's been found, right? But he said, oh, I don't know, I'm kind of happy and kind of sad. I mean, I would think he'd be like, hallelujah, it's over. Not to say that it is over legally. Surely not to say it's over legally. Who knows? Who knows? Because one theory is that Mr. Fenn might have had it retrieved himself. Who knows? He could ask Shiloh to retrieve it, and Shiloh hires some guy to retrieve it and gives him $10,000, and Shiloh doesn't tell Fenn who actually retrieved it, and so Fenn's able to say, well, I don't know who retrieved it. That's kind of far out. But here's a question I've been wondering about, and much of what I'm saying now was in my previous 7 videos, which were just, God, I don't know how many hours they went on, but they went on a long time. What if Forrest Fenn wanted to end the hunt? Well, let me talk about this, and then I'll talk about ending the hunt. Here's another reason he might want to end the hunt. A father and son team, this is by Mark Davis, a father and son team from Cody, Wyoming, claim they solved the clues left by Santa Fe art dealer Forrest Fenn and are now waiting for their payoff in gold and jewels. Chris and Christopher Hearst, father and son, say that after presenting their evidence to Fenn, he announced later that same day the hunt was over and the riddle solved. In a nutshell, this article gets a little laborious. I'm going to cut it down and tell you what these guys claim happened. Chris and Christopher Hearst claim that they've been researching the treasure hunt for years, that they had a benefactor who says that he believes he probably gave him about $15,000. That they had to continue their research, that they had hired cartographers, which I believe would be map makers or map experts. They had used equipment that they had to rent. They had apparently downsized their house to make some money and moved into a smaller house and used whatever they got off the sale of the first house to go to the treasure hunt. These people that spend their savings and stuff on this hunt and are extremely, well, say what you will, they spend a lot of money on it. Now, this is what their story comes down to. They say they came down to figuring out the treasure was in a 12 by 12 area. And they claimed that they were communicating with Mr. Fenn. And that last winter, they don't say exactly when, they will say this about where the treasure is near. They say the treasure is near a ghost town of Kerwin. According to Dale Neitzel, Kerwin is a popular place for those hunting for the Forrest Fenn treasure. I've never even heard of it. Yeah, Neitzel says the Kerwin area has been a popular search area since very soon after the search started. Now here's where it gets really dicey, if you believe it. Oh, here's a little joke Chris Hearst made. He said, yeah, I think he lied a little, meaning Fenn. He said he entombed it in a Chase bank. Of course, we know that Fenn has talked about the treasure being entombed or sepulchered, so he's making a little joke, and of course Chase Bank is a little joke. I don't know. I think that was just a joke. As Fenn sometimes does, he jokes and people don't know not to take it seriously. So this is what they said, taking a while to get there as usual. Apparently they had been communicating with Forrest Fenn about their search. I'm not sure that they had given him the 12 by 12 foot area they eventually came to believing it was in. But they had talked to Mr. Fenn in the winter, and when they asked Mr. Fenn about whether they should go out, they were told to let, quote, the snow melt and the mud dry before going after the treasure. So said Chris Hearst. Then, in a follow-up call on June 5th, they claim they presented Fenn with their evidence about the 12 by 12 foot location. They don't say what Fenn said back, but they claim within 24 hours of that, he announced the fine, which of course was June 6th. Interesting. Now, luckily for Fenn, they don't want to sue him. They said he's our idol. They said Forrest Fenn is our idol. We don't want to sue him. But it's still, if that's true, and it sounds, again, we're in this limbo. We're in this kind of fantasy land going on with people saying things that we got people thinking they've been hacked by mystery men that Fenn is now protecting, even though they can't even tell you who the person is that's hacking their computer and found the treasure. We got guys now saying that Forrest Fenn was basically told where the treasure was and then a day later announced that it was found, so they didn't get it. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff to think about, and also, you have that situation with Ducapil saying that 2 of those photos he knows somehow, having spent in 2012, a week at Forrest Fenn's compound, he seems to be very sure that those 2 photos that Forrest Fenn is in are old photos, not ones of him going through the treasure now. So this was my keeping all those kind of things in mind, and I may have even missed a lawsuit in there, but you get the general idea. You have got a lot of people, whether valid or crazy, that are just constantly on Mr. Fenn's tail about everything. And you have all the background stuff, like people stalking his family members or having to be held at gunpoint. You have a lot of stuff going on. That's why I say, if I was Forrest Fenn, someone contacted me and told me they had found the treasure, I would be like, hallelujah. Not to mention the guy's almost 90 years of age. To be that old, I just think all of this has got to really be a constant. You don't even have to, like I said, you don't even have to be old for it to be a headache. It's just a big friggin' headache. I'd be so glad it's over with. I would just be so glad it's over with. About ending the hunt. I think if Forrest Fenn went to his lawyers and he said, listen, I got people like the Hearst brothers that say that, maybe they knew the location and he knew they knew the location. Let's let that ride. I've got other, but they didn't sue him, but I got other lawsuits going on. I got the number 7 death. And people imploring me online to please put an end to this hunt. And number 7, every one of these deaths had to be a big deal, but it's getting up there, isn't it? What if Forrest Fenn, in that context, said, I really want to end this hunt? How would he do it? Because people have speculated he has every right to end the hunt. We know that he once said, if the market value of the treasure that I see, depending on these items that are ancient items or have cultural interest and just the gold in general, if you take all those things together, and speaking as Fenn did, I, as Mr. Fenn, feel that the treasure's now worth at least $10 million. He said, I might go retrieve it. Then later, I think he said, I was kind of kidding about retrieving. I'm never going to retrieve it. Then, of course, he said he never would be able to retrieve it. He was too old. Ducapil, the guy who went and interviewed Fenn in 2012 and says 2 of the photos are not, in fact, new photos, that they're old photos, which makes you wonder why Fenn wouldn't admit that. You start to see these kind of things occurring that make you wonder. And so my point about ending the hunt is, what if he went to his lawyers and he said, so what would happen if I just ended the hunt? I think they'd say, you're perfectly well within your rights to do that, but expect a lot of lawsuits. Because you've got a lot of people who have ruin their lives financially. I mean, seriously, ruin their lives financially. And to follow this thing. And then you have all of these people who just feel like he's not been really, let's really get into it with Mr. Fenn in court and find out what he was really telling us that was true and not true, because a lot of people seem to feel they've been misled, and I don't know how. I guess they just don't find the treasure and say, well, then obviously I've been misled. I'm just saying, though, for people that are really fanatical about it and stuff, I could see them saying, you know what, I think Fenn tricked us. I think this is a lie about someone actually finding it. And I want to go to court and find out because I think I was right. I mean, look at the Hearst example. They claim, they think, they told Fenn where it was, and he just apparently had it retrieved. If not retrieved, then simply said someone found it and it's still out there. But then where does the photo come from of the treasure chest? That's why I believe the treasure chest has been retrieved, because of that photo. If in fact the other two photos are not recent photos. And if that turns out to be true, it's part of this whole thing that keeps us in this limbo of not understanding why Fenn wouldn't just say, oh, by the way, these were taken before I put it out there, and here's the one, here it is 10 years later. He could have just done that, and it wouldn't seem mysterious to me at all. Actually, it would be very telling, because it would say, yeah, there he is. He's going through the treasure chest, and he's getting it ready to put out there. I don't know, folks, that's all I've got for you. I'm glad this is a lot shorter than 7 videos that I had ready to go. And, man, this is just really something. I think it's going to be very exciting. Oh, I'm so excited. I don't have to go out and look for the treasure chest now, and we just let this unfold. We let this happen, and we get to watch. And like I said, yeah, I'll do videos on it because it's very exciting. It's very exciting. And if there's any kind of hanky-panky going on, in one way, I wouldn't want Fenn to be involved. I really would not want Fenn to be involved in anything that was bad for him and trouble for him. I think for him to say he wouldn't do it over again, he's had enough trouble and pressure from doing it. He created a monster. He created a monster, and I was thinking of that, and I commented on one of the videos that I deleted. He created a monster that, like I said, what if he just said to Peggy, I gotta stop this thing. This thing's insanity. It's driven people nuts. They're breaking into our house. People are dying out there. I got people suing me. It's just a nightmare. How do I end it? How would he end it? If he just said, I'm not going, if he just said, I end the treasure hunt. I had Shiloh go get it, his grandson, Shiloh, go get it. Maybe he would have 100 lawsuits. Just throw them. That's a silly number. 10 lawsuits, 15. Who knows? He claims 350,000 people have looked for it. What if he had a class action suit? That's been bandied around. Yeah, class action suit. I could see people doing that. I would not be part of that, but I could see people doing that. They might say, no, you don't want to end it. Just say, someone found it, and you can't disclose any information about it. But in the end, I will leave you with this thought. 3-letter acronym. IRS. I firmly believe the IRS, if a conservation department ranger in Colorado is emailing Eric Johnson about a comment he made in a video walking around in a creek in Colorado, very nice letter, very professional letter, I'd like to again say, nice guy. But if on that level people are watching what's going on, and that was a case of the man doing his job, you don't think the IRS called someone and said, hey buddy, get over there and talk to Mr. Fenn and find out who found this treasure because he owes taxes this year. I think the IRS has already talked to Mr. Fenn. What do I know? Nothing. I'm just very I'm very sure the IRS has already talked to Mr. Fenn. They're going to get to the heart of it. And I'll tell you another thing, too. There is no way in hell, in my opinion, that people who know who the finder is, or are acquaintances of people who know who the finder is, aren't going to give out this information if the finder doesn't. People talk. Someone's going to give out the information at some point, I'm sure of it. And that's some of the fun stuff coming down the pike. So everybody have a good day. I think it's extremely exciting watching what's going on. Extremely exciting. I'm very excited to watch it. And maybe instead of going out to the Rockies, I'll do something else. I don't know. Kind of a homebody. Everybody have a good day, and talk to you later. Bye.